Hello everyone, welcome back to this week's #productivity. And once again, we are so excited and privileged to be chatting to the Blue Ninjas, Julie Taylor and Louisa Stewart, and all the way from the UK and from the Netherlands. 1 hour behind us now, the daylight savings time is switched off. So today we are talking all about bringing meaning to data. And you might be like, what exactly is this? Like, why are we talking about this? But we're really following on from last month's Facebook Live session where we were talking about getting your information to work for you. And today what we're wanting to do is to help you to bring some of that data to life, to help it to tell a little bit of a story, to make sense, to be able to get you to a point where you can make decisions, right? So it means being able to easily and quickly tap into all of those different data sources that you have, because there's so many of them, right? And be able to integrate them into a report that can help you to grow your business. And this growth, as you know, is accomplished through streamlining your processes and having information available that can help you to make faster and more accurate decisions. And at the end of the day, really being able to have a clear picture of how your business is really performing and use that information to improve, grow, and succeed your business, right? Okay, so just a little bit of context before we get started. So I want to ask you ladies, what does it actually mean? This whole context or concept of bringing meaning to data, what does this actually mean?
I'll start today. Yeah, I mean, data, it runs the world, doesn't it? You know, it's become a very big deal for businesses to drive forward. You know, if you're not analyzing your data now, that there's a problem, because how can you keep moving forward if you can't measure what you've done? So data that is clear, you know, high quality, that can help see through the fog. You know, you can make educated and informed decisions from that data. You can also analyze your data from planning through KPIs and objectives. KPIs are key performance indicators. I always forget to tell you the acronyms. Your website, social media, and you should be checking these very regularly to see how your data is measuring up against your business strategy. How long, you know, when you do this is up to you, but you need to be making sure that you're keeping on top of what your data is telling you. You also need to consider what data to collect and how to use it effectively.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And from all the facts, numbers, etc., you need to provide the story behind that. How to bring your data to life, to give it meaning as analysis, pulling it together in one place, checking that the right measures have been used. Are you measuring the same periods each time? Because if you're not doing that, you're not matching apples with apples. Then, despite my love of Excel and Christine's, which is how we first met, you need to think about what tool needs to be used to do this reporting. Don't just jump into analysis without thinking about what is the end goal, what is it you want to measure, what decisions do you need to make from this. So Louisa's mentioned KPIs. So you might define some, but you want to check your data against these and show that they're set at the right level. You might need to adjust them the very first time. You might end up with some surprises as well the first time you do it. Both there could be good surprises, bad surprises. And then, you know, you need to put some context around this with a commentary to sort of put a picture why something's not as good as you thought it'd be, or why something's super amazing and was unexpected. And what's the reason something isn't performing, and what you're going to do to remedy that situation.
There's a really good quote by Ronald Coase, and he says, "Torture the data and it will confess to anything." I quite like that.
That's hilarious. I want to just tack onto what you had mentioned, Louisa, about like the way that you interpret your data. I think one of the things, and the frequency with which you do it, specifically from a financial perspective, if you don't have the information, you can't make the right decisions. But also if you wait too long to get to the point where you're able to gather that information, you also still cannot make really good and credible decisions. So think about the businesses that might only have financial statements on a yearly basis. Now, like 3 months after year end, you're getting numbers for the previous 12 months. Like, how is that helping you to make real-time decisions? And if we can't pivot and be agile in terms of the information that we've got, then actually what's the point of having all this data? So I think it's really important for us to make sure that we are managing the frequency and the urgency with which we treat the information we're collecting. So I really like the idea of treating data as telling us a story, because and I love the quote that you shared, really great. If you torture it, it will confess to anything. I totally agree with that. And we sometimes see that in the way that people interpret graphs, and you've got like these random scales, and actually it just tells you whatever you want it to tell you. But that's not what we want. So let's maybe take one step back and just say, like, let's understand how we actually go about measuring that data to be able to get to a point where we've got something meaningful that can help us move forward.
Yeah, I think if you have goals, you can measure against them. So when you look at this and see what data you need for those elements, we've set goals for this year and made sure that we have, a timeline for that goal. What are we going to actually achieve? So you really need to plan out what you need, from where and when. So it's really important to keep that in mind as you need to measure the data.
But you've got to bear in mind as well, are you collecting data you don't need? Or are you paying for a system that doesn't give you what you need? You can become quickly overwhelmed with data. If you're collecting it and you're not aware what you're going to use it for, you can just have piles of the stuff everywhere. When should you look at your data? Like you said there, it's got to be in a timely fashion. Is it daily, weekly, monthly? It depends on what it is, what it's for, what your role is, but at least a monthly check is important to make sure you're on track with your data and you're evaluating against your metrics.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. But there's a lot of stuff that we can collect, right? And I think we've spoken about this before as well, just to say, like, there's so much information or data that you could potentially collect, but you can get really overwhelmed. So can you guys maybe give us some examples of what the most relevant data sets of information that you have found as you've been dealing with your clients that maybe our listeners could specifically look at?
Yeah, so things like lead and customer information, what are you gathering, where are you going to put it, how often are you going to view it, is it still relevant, goals and metrics. You use these to analyze your business objectives, like Louisa's already mentioned. How are you being smart with your metrics? We've talked about SMART goals in a few webinars ago.
Yeah, and social media data as well, and we wonder if people place too much importance on that. If it's not bringing in business, is it useful? Yeah. I think you should still look at it, but I think you need to measure how much of a priority you're placing on things like likes. Are they the most important thing, or are you looking for followers, or what's your metric that actually tells the story that you need to tell with your social media? If you run an event, people should have targets for their events. You shouldn't just put on something for the sake of putting it on. You need to know what the deliverables are and how to measure those. Are you measuring the number of people that came? Are you measuring how many seminars you had? Are you measuring, did you get the top people in the world on the topic that you're looking for? So there's a lot of metrics that you can run to tell the story with the data that you receive. Internal numbers, team targets, your own KPIs and deliverables, you'll know what you need to achieve. How are you assessing these business achievements? I'm very lucky that Julie keeps tabs on our planning. So we have like a Kanban board, and, we're always making sure that we're meeting the task deadlines that are set against those metrics. So that's really important as well, to not lose sight of internal as well as external.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I wanted to just add something on there in terms of social media and doing things for the sake of doing it. Even like running webinars, or like I remember when I was doing my training on a slightly more regular basis than I am at the moment. It was all public facing. I was doing it with the intention of being able to help people, right? And potentially get some additional business coming through from it. But I was also doing it because I really enjoyed doing it, but actually that was not what my market needed at that point in time, or actually there wasn't enough time for all of it. So it is important to decide what you should be focusing on, and specifically social media, Louisa, as you were saying, like, is it the likes, is it the followers, is it the engagement? What is it that you are trying to measure? And that's all about where you are at in your sales funnel, right? In terms of awareness or decision making or whatever it is, but everything that you're analyzing should be talking to wherever you're wanting to go at the end of the day, right? Reaching those targets, as you've correctly stated. Okay, so yeah, we're not talking about personal information here, right? So we're not talking GDPR, and we're not talking about property, but yet we are dealing with data. So one of the questions that always come up when we talk about data is who is responsible for maintaining the data, who's responsible for getting the data. And if you guys would like maybe like to share any examples of what maybe has happened in some of the client relationships that you guys have had in terms of collecting data.
Sure. Ultimately, if it's your business, then you're responsible. If you've got shareholders, you need to make sure your data is providing them with the information that's relevant to make the right decisions for your company.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think also being honest with your data as well. You know, you can torture the data as much as you like, but you need to be honest with what it's telling you as well.
Yeah.
So we had an issue recently with a client that we identified through the data. So the wrong tag was added to a form from a website that then fed into the CRM that we were using. So all the data that was pulling through was incorrect on those records. And we noticed it because the Facebook ads that the marketing team were running were telling one story, but the CRM and reporting mechanism was telling another. So we had a call and talked through what the problem was, and from that we worked through the process and found the issue and corrected it. You know, but we also talked through with the client, because it was an honest mistake. It was just the tag had been put on. There was quite a few ads, like we had a lot of different elements of this process, and it was just an honest mistake. So it was corrected. We reported on it, and then we analyzed the next month to make sure that we could show that the data was working, you know, the right way, and the error was fixed, etc. But it was, you know, that moment of horror that, you know, that you feel of, oh my God, something's gone wrong. But I think as well that if something does go wrong, step through and work out what's happened and fix it. You know, don't hide because something's, you know, gone wrong with your data. I think that's really important for businesses to not shirk from something going wrong. I mean, all the time now that you hear, you know, data breaches and things, big companies are stepping up and going, we're really sorry, we had a fix or something that went horribly wrong, and you know, there was a data breach because it just happened to be a hacker was there at the time. And honesty is the best policy when it comes to data, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. And I like what you said, it's about taking ownership at the end of the day, right? So as business owners, we need to make sure that we are protecting and taking ownership of maintaining and collecting the correct information or data to be able to get to the point where we've got information. But yeah, it is, at the end of the day, it's our responsibility. Even if it is a case of assigning or delegating that responsibility within your business, at the end of the day, it still sits with you. So I totally agree with what you said there. Final question. I'm sure you guys already know what the question is. And the question is, what tools can we use? And I know we've already addressed some of them last time, but yeah, maybe just rehash some of the ones we last time too.
Yeah, so we mentioned a few tools on last month's call, which was, we covered a few, which were Google Analytics and Teamwave and Xero, Crunch HR and Zendesk. There's so many out there. But as we've mentioned, we suggest looking at what you need and what the reporting capability of the tools you have already. You know, you don't need to splash out on the fanciest, shiniest thing. Just look at what you've got. This is when you need to watch out for the free trials of software, of course. They show you all the capability. It's a bit like seeing the car advert and go, wow, that car looks amazing. And you know, then they show the price, but the small print on the bottom is like, you know, that's like double the price for the fancy car. So yeah, you're going to end up with a basic package and be a little bit disappointed. It's not going to do what you want. So like we said, is use what you've got there and build on it. Reporting needs to be considered when implementing any project or tool. Sadly, it's usually forgotten until the very end, and then people just want to snap their fingers and get analysis. So always consider this and flag it at the beginning of a project or an implementation.
Yeah. I want to maybe also just add on to that, you're talking about the free trials and things like that. If you are at all subscribing to Microsoft Outlook, or you've got the Office 365 package, you probably have access to Power BI, which is basically Microsoft's solution to be able to create dashboards. And it's really cool what it can do. It's really powerful. So for our viewers, make sure you check out that as an option as well. And if you need more information about Power BI, let us know, because we've got some training packages around Power BI, and we can also help you actually build up those dashboards, because really at the end of the day, if you've got some live information where you can make the decisions as and when it happens, you know, whenever something happens, whenever data changes, to be able to make decisions based on that, that is really the point that we want to get to. So check that one out as well. Is there any way where our listeners can find out more about this? I've got a feeling you guys have a nice little download you would like to share with us.
Yeah, we've got a report that we can add to the chat just to make sure, and we're actually writing a blog that will come out next week on what we've been talking about today.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. So definitely some resources for you guys to check out. Julie, would you like to add anything in closing? Are we good? Louisa, any other comments, thoughts you would like to share?
Oh, good. I think we want to run off and go and have a play with Power BI now.
Oh, yes.
Louisa going,
oh, yes. Okay, awesome. Thanks, ladies. I always enjoy our time together. Thank you so much for your contributions. Really value you guys and value having you as part of the network. And I know that our audience also appreciates your input. Okay, so until next month's session with the Blue Ninjas, as we talk about #productivity, this is Christine Tadot from UPvisor and Julie Taylor from the Blue Ninjas and Louisa Stewart from the Blue Ninjas signing out. Until next month. Bye-bye.
Bye.